in all of our lives in so many situations, you have to be willing to hold two opposing truths in one hand. And then that hand to your heart. Two things can coexist, and they are going to be maybe even opposite truth if we can start accepting that those opposing truths are both true. And that's okay.
That is today's guest, Kim Frank, and in many ways, her story is a tale of two incredible journeys. Her personal journey going from a divorced mother of two, describing herself as having, quote, a lifetime of fear and lack of confidence, and in some ways putting her dreams on hold, to then finding her voice through travel, activism, and multimedia storytelling, and sharing all of the struggles that came along with that. And of course, the other journey happening simultaneously, her journey across the world to India, going from the terror of that first solo trip to a remote corner of India, and then over time documenting a conflict in this part of the world that really isn't on most people's radar. The clash between humans and elephants competing for the same shrinking space, which unfortunately leads to deaths on both sides. And you'll hear why both sides are right. Both sides are suffering, and what, quote, holding two truths means when conservation gets complicated. And you're going to hear Kim's insights working with local communities, forest officials, and conservationists, all trying to solve this very difficult, maybe impossible problem to solve. The transformative power of pursuing something that scares you, how travel can help you find your voice again, why standing in uncomfortable spaces is where growth happens, and so much more. So whether you're navigating a transition of your own, maybe you're curious about responsible travel and conservation, or wondering, perhaps, if you want to reinvent or invent parts of yourself to pursue a new dream, Kim's story offers a lot of wisdom and advice that you'll hear today. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. Kim Frank is our guest today. She's the author of Elephants in the Hourglass, A Journey of Reckoning and Hope Along the Himalaya. You can learn more about her over on her website, kimfrankwriter.com. Has links to all the socials. And Kim is an award-winning writer. She's a fellow of the Explorers Club and the Royal Geographical Society. But she didn't start out with all those things, right? I mean, a lot of this is the journey towards that. And she even says she's not a scientist or a professional adventurer, but that didn't stop her from finding her voice as well as a new purpose and getting out in the world and doing something with it. I love that. And I find these stories so inspirational of this idea of, I believe it was James Altucher put this out there, choose yourself. You know, you don't need somebody to tell you you can do something. You can empower yourself to go out and do it and make a difference in whatever way that means to you. And, you know, I'll have a little bit of commentary on that coming out of this interview on the back end. You can stick around for that and my number one takeaway from this conversation. For now, please enjoy my chat with Kim, and don't forget zerototravel.com/newsletters, where you can sign up for the newsletter and keep a touch off the pod. Now, here's my conversation with Kim. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on the other side, my friend. Cheers. Kim Frank, welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jason. I'm thrilled to be here.
It's bringing back some mountain town memories for me, because I know you're in Sun Valley and I used to live in Boulder. How do you like living in a mountain town?
I really love it. I've lived here for a long time, and I'm originally from Ocean City, New Jersey, which is...
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm from the East Coast. I'm from outside of Philadelphia, so I've spent
a lot of time
in Ocean City, New Jersey.
How about that? Well, I grew up in Ocean City, New Jersey, which, as you well know, is a small tourist town. So I think I was always kind of craving living in a tourist town. So now I live in the mountains in a tourist town, and I love it. It's a really terrific base camp too. So it's very sheltering and peaceful to come home to, and the mountain energy, as you know from your time in the mountains, is pretty palpable. So it's a pretty vibrant place to call home.
You know, it's funny because I live overseas, as you know. Traveling around, you see all these amazing places, yet when it came time to, take my kids traveling, one of the things I really wanted to do was take them to the Jersey Shore because I grew up going to the Jersey Shore. And so it has these special memories for me. I mean, do you feel the same way about the Jersey Shore? Are there places like that where because you can go to all these spectacular places, but then eventually sometimes it's just about the connection, the travel connection with your childhood memories.
That is so true. And it was very important to me to, both my daughters are actually adopted from China and raised in this, oddly enough, ski town. And however, I really wanted them to deeply know and appreciate and understand the place that shaped me and my growing up, and all the memories that I had. I wanted to kind of pass to them. And I think I succeeded when I would ask them in the summer as I got older, okay, we're going to Ocean City, write your lists of everything you want to do. And the list would come back and it was Core Brothers ice cream, Mac and Mango pizza,
right?
Johnson's popcorn. They were food items.
You succeeded, Kim.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I thought, yeah.
I was thinking, okay, Mac and Mango's pizza has got to be on this list.
Yes, it is top of the list, even though now it's called Manco and Manco, which I won't accept. But
okay, yeah, it's been a hot second since I've been there. I just remember the tube spitting out the sauce and how spectacular that was.
It was great.
And skee ball and all the rest. Yeah, no, it's funny. Well, I mean, you talk about the moment of adoption in your book. I mean, you talk about a lot of things in your book that are very personal. And, I kind of wanted to start here related to the book content, which, of course, we're going to talk about today and link up to in the show notes. Well, I mean, tell people about the book really quickly.
So let's see, where do I start?
Elephants in the Hourglass is the title.
The book is Elephants in the Hourglass, A Journey of Reckoning and Hope Along the Himalaya. And I set out to write the book to illuminate the conflict between humans and elephants happening in this part of the world, in India, because I had some traveling experience and I became kind of very interested in wanting to show what's happening with Asian elephants, because I think people know a lot about what's happening with African elephants, and there's a big groundswell of international support for African elephants in Africa, but a lot of people that I know in the West have never really known about what was happening with Asian elephants in India. So I became very interested in telling this story. When it came time to actually write the book, I was surprised. You hear writers often say like, oh, the book kind of wrote itself, or, this, which I'm a living testament that the book does not write itself.
Right.
What does tend to happen, however, is energy is given to certain parts. Like you will start writing, and if you are deep into the flow of it, you'll find yourself writing about something that maybe you didn't anticipate. And in my case, the book became a very personal story of how did I even come to this place. India wasn't on my bucket list. And this part of India is a very niche part of India. What gave rise to it? And I found myself really telling the story about being a mother, and then being a mother through a divorce, and then onward finding my voice again as a woman, as an activist, as a change agent, and as a writer. And how do I do that and still be a good mom and work my way through some of the kind of parenting angst and guilt that I think society tends to help us along with very well.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that about your work, because I think, as a writer, you have the choice of what to include and what to omit. And like you said, sometimes, I guess, in the creative process, you take these organic twists and turns, and it just ends up being something perhaps sometimes that's unexpected. Other times it's kind of the direction you were headed. You knew you were going to cover, and we're going to talk about some of the issues around the elephants. But, the first part of the book is really about kind of your personal journey. And I wanted to get into that a bit because, like you said, right in the intro, quote, "I am an unlikely explorer, a mother of 2 daughters, not a scientist or adventurer, but a woman who overcomes a lifetime of fear and lack of confidence in pursuit of a complex truth." That part of your journey, you could leave it out and sort of more position yourself as this sort of adventurer with all the confidence in the world, but that's not where things started, and you built that up. And I appreciate that, because that's just being honest, and like, that's being human. It's easy in social media and all this stuff to feel like just like people pop out of the womb as, accomplished climbers and explorers and all this stuff. And you're just like peeling back the curtain and it's like, well, wait a minute, here's what it is. So, you were facing self-doubt, facing the journey of building a new life and a new career after a divorce, which is a very difficult thing to do. Some identity stuff there, I'm sure. What did you learn during that period of your life? And as part of that, I'd love to hear any of your advice for people that are making a transition like that from one phase of life to another.
I'd love to share that. So by the time I was finished writing the book, I was already moving into doing the documentary, and I was a lot more confident as an explorer, as a person, as a traveler, all the things. But it was really important to me to write this book to honor the woman I was at that beginning journey, because I've been involved now in the Explorers Club in New York since 2018. And when I first met people at the Explorers Club, I had realized that there were a lot of stories and books, even that I had read, where people were, narratives where explorers were, I call them the "there I was" narrative, there I was at the top of the mountain. And I think women, especially, if we show our vulnerability or our weakness, especially in certain fields, I felt I wanted other people to see the vulnerability, that we don't just show up and, as you say, we just burst out of the womb confident. And fear is a very real thing for everybody. When we're first starting out in anything, we have to work through fear. We don't become fearless. So it was important to me to tell the story of myself at that time with all its rawness, all its vulnerability, in hopes that other people would read that and think, oh, I don't have to already have all these tools in place. I don't have to already, if I'm and I'm not climbing Everest, but if you're an Everest climber, you first have to start just by walking, taking some steps in the right direction. And so my kind of thematic of the book by the end of it was thinking, if you want to fix something, you have to act. And that can be very personal. It can also be as a change agent. And I speak to both in the book, that acting sometimes to pull yourself out of a problem, or pull yourself out of a situation that you don't want to continue living in, or a pattern that you're in, it requires just one step of action. And then that one step of action can build another step of action. And so I wanted to demonstrate, almost through my own experience, how that, how one person did that. And there it was. So I guess my advice is, if you want to fix something, you have to act. And as scary as it is, and you don't act alone. We are alone, obviously, to the end inside, but we're not acting alone. There's always a community of people that you can kind of tap into. But that first step is up to us.
When you felt really challenged as you were taking those steps, how did you manage to get out of your own way, so to speak?
It's a lifelong.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. And I think that's important too. There's no magic bullet to get there. It's a lifelong journey, and it's a lifelong process of getting out of our own way. For me, I did a lot of journaling. Someone gave me great advice. My mentor gave me great advice. Like, when you're out in the field, you don't have to, I'm a writer, right? So I think, okay, here's my notebook. every day when I get back, I'm going to do this journaling, and but you're exhausted. When I'm exhausted at the end of the day, whatever work I'm doing out there, it's tiring. So I've learned to start doing voice memos. And I find that even though I'm talking to myself, I'm really processing a lot and able to see myself. And writing for me has been a good way to reflect on myself and the ways I might be getting in my own way. Like, I can almost have a conversation with myself to then see myself. And that's been a really meaningful process, a good tool for me to use as I go, writing as a reflection.
You mentioned a mentor. Is that somebody? Can you share a little bit more about how that relationship
absolutely.
evolved?
And I think this is another thing, I say, like, we don't do things. It may look in history, it appears as if, one famous person, like, for example, Rosa Parks, like we say, like, oh, Rosa Parks, she sat on that bus and she started the civil rights movement. Or she was not alone. She had a whole network of people. And in history, I think we tend to look at the accomplishments of somebody and think that we did that by ourselves. Or I was very lucky to have a mentor. His name's Anthony Geffen. He's the founder of Atlantic Productions, and we had met him years before, and then I had started doing this project, and I didn't know what it was. We happened to be at their house for a weekend in Wales, and I had all my photos and all that. Maybe it's a documentary, maybe it's a book. And he was able to sit down with me and take a look at it. And he said, you need to, before you can start a documentary, you have to know what the story is. So write the book. And then I remember we were on a hillside, we were hiking, and we were at the top of the hill, and his jacket was whipping in the wind. And I still have this vision of, like, his crazy hair. And he's like, Kim, sometimes you have to fight for the story. And I thought, poof. I've been fighting for the story I'm about to go back for my 9th trip since 2018, and I'm still fighting for the story. And it's a good fight.
It's a good visual with the wind whipping. And
yeah.
Sometimes the fight for the story is that visceral, I suppose.
It is.
Well, you mentioned, some of the sort of unique challenges associated with being a woman. I know you talk about women in exploration quite a bit, and some of those specific challenges that women might face. Can you talk a little bit about that? And as it relates to, what we talked about in the beginning, like, I think one of the themes for you, it seems to me, mentioning you're not a scientist, you weren't an adventurer, and you're taking on trying to figure out this big story is just, and I find that this is so helpful for everybody. It's just like, you just have to give yourself permission to do it in some ways. But then you have the societal pressures, or perhaps perceptions, implications, maybe, is another thing. Can you talk about some of the dynamics there?
Absolutely. I'm taking a moment to assess how deep I want to go here, because it's deep. I
Yeah.
think
Well, is there something you haven't
it's
talked about related to this that you've?
I think I'd like to talk about guilt. So 3 moments to illuminate this. One, when my ex-husband and I were just starting the adoption process many years ago, I at that time was an activist working for a national organization. I was traveling all over the country, and he was not traveling at all. And we had a social worker come to the house to do a home assessment, and they interviewed us deeply. And interestingly, they asked my ex-husband, how much do you travel for work? And he said, oh, I don't travel at all. They never asked me any questions like that. They just said, oh, show me the nursery. What are you going to, assuming that I'd be staying home full time with my daughter. And in fact, I, at that time, was traveling twice a month for weeks. I was traveling very actively, and my vision at the time was, oh, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm going to be a mom that brings my child around with me while I'm, on the State House steps with my picket sign. And, I ended up becoming a stay-at-home mom very quickly after my first daughter was adopted, and I was lucky to be in that position to do. Fast forward to post-divorce, I have now been a full-time mom, but now I'm sharing my parenting half time with my ex-husband. So I have this deep loss of this time with my children and I'm rebuilding now a career. So I'm getting back out in the world again. The resistance to entering back into the workforce from outside, it was fascinating to me. Like, it almost seemed like there were rules that no one had told me. The rules were, as a woman, you can work, and you have to work now, so you can work, but you can't travel and work. And you really shouldn't be traveling to cool places to find work and expand your career, like investing in your networking across the country or in other countries, or taking risks out in India to tell this story. That's like, you really shouldn't be doing that. So there was a feeling of pressure that I was always facing and thinking, especially because the way that the nature of these projects were, a lot of them were self-investments. Like, no one was paying me up front to write this book. Now I'm grateful that I've had an advance, and I am, that I'm doing different things connected to it, and I am able to make some more income as it relates to it. But the guilt I felt, and that was kind of reinforced by society. Every time I would come back and people would say, oh, well, how was your trip? Like, I was on a vacation. And then people would always ask, well, who's watching your children? And like, well, the girl's father, and also my parents and my husband. And there's a whole network of support for my children while I'm not here. And I'm only gone for like these short periods of time. But I really had to manage that. And I remember there was one night in particular, I was out, and I write about it in the book. It was the first time I was actually seeing the human-elephant conflict in real time. And I was out on motorcycles late at night. I had a magazine assignment, so I was very much focused on, I'm going to be experiencing this story, which I could read about it, but until you experience it, I couldn't quite, I'd never be able to tell the story had I not experienced it. 24 hours, it was harrowing, it was dangerous, and I got a text from my daughter's dermatologist while I was out in the middle of the field, and I thought, and there's this herd of elephants there, and people are shooting cannons and firecrackers, and I've got my helmet on, and I'm terrified. And I look down at my phone, and I see, oh my God, my daughter's got a dermatologist appointment, and I'm afraid that like her dad's going to miss it and not take her. And I've been waiting weeks for her to get in there. So I'm quickly texting to try and manage that dermatology appointment. And my husband, David, who's an explorer for decades, when I came back, he laughed and he's like, I don't think anyone was ever asking Shackleton to make sure that his daughter was getting to her doctor's appointment. So we don't stop being a parent, even in the middle. And I think that tends to be unique to women sometimes.
That would have changed the famous Shackleton ad, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Wanted, sure death. Also, be sure your kids get to their dermatology.
So exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that I think gets overlooked perhaps in the scenario you were describing where, you're off and people can question, what about your kids and all this stuff, is the value of leading by example and showing your kids that you can have this kind of life, that you can find something that gives you meaning, that you can go out and put yourself out there in that way. That matters a ton.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And this is also in the book, but in my life, my daughters, they were getting older. They were in high school. And I realized at some point, wait a minute, how much is my own guilt? Like, why don't I ask them how they feel about this?
Right. Is this all in my head kind of thing?
Yeah. Or is there this external pressure that actually they're not feeling, but I'm feeling? So I had a really great talk with them about, if I'm going to take this to the next level, I don't want to do that without your permission, really. And how do you feel about it? And at the time, they both, we support you, Mom. And my youngest daughter, Goldie, was like, I support you. I just want to make sure you're going to be there for my 8th grade moving up ceremony. Like, of course, I'm not going to miss that, and I really appreciated having that dialogue. And it gave me this new realization too, that now they're both in college, and I think I'm seeing the ways that I'm able to, my hope was always I would be able to be a role model for my daughters, for my niece, for other young women, that you don't have to give up your career or your passions or your interests in order to be a mom. You can be both well, and you're not going to be perfect. We're never going to be perfect parents ever. Just give that right up. Like, we are going to fail spectacularly, and we're also going to thrive, and we're going to do the best we can. But while we're doing it, our children are watching us. And when they make decisions in their lives, especially if they're daughters with a mother, I think I want my children to find something that they're passionate about and embrace it and pursue their curiosity till the ends of the earth, while also being able to be in a loving relationship and have a family if that's what they want. I believe we can do both, and I hope I can show them that.
That's great. How old are they now?
20 and 19.
Okay.
And my oldest daughter came out to London with me, and was able to watch and come to the studio while we're making this documentary. And so it was really exciting for her to see it in real time, for her to join me. And my youngest daughter actually helped fundraise for the documentary, and has been so amazingly supportive. And then my niece, I took her to India with me last year for her senior project on the human-elephant conflict.
Wow.
So I feel like, I feel good. There's a light.
Yeah. On a recent post on Instagram, you were referring to your trips back to India. You said every trip reveals deeper meaning in a force that is guiding and shifting the landscape. While I originally came to see the elephants, it's ultimately the people I love and the space in between. Can you talk about what you mean by the space in between?
Yes. And I just want to say, I love each question you've asked me. You have hit at the absolute heart of what's most important to me along the way. I'm always searching for that space between is to me the most fascinating thing, because it's this kind of, I think it's where all the magic happens. And I think as humans, we tend to forget, unless we're, have a deep meditation practice or have some type of strong spiritual belief or deeply connected to nature, we tend to forget about the importance of the space between. And when I've been taking these trips, I've realized more and more, the most tangible is that, for example, Kanchenjunga, the third highest mountain in the world, in the area that I'm working in, most of the time you can't see it. However, every once in a while, I think it was year 2, it cleared, the mist cleared, and there's this massive, stunning 5-peaked mountain visible from the entire landscape. All that I've been traveling in all this time, it's been there. And, those of us that have spent time in the mountains know that there's a very palpable mountain force energy that kind of affects nature in a very meaningful way, and people as it relates to nature as well. And so to have been operating for those years and never having seen that mountain, and then knowing that it's actually right in front of my face, made me give some deep reflection to all the ways that maybe we don't see things that are right in front of us, or that just because we can't see something doesn't mean it's not there or not true. And the more I've gone back, I see that the people I work with, who I feel a deep responsibility for getting this story right in every form that I've been telling it, and a deep, deep gratitude for the communities that have let me in and have given me trust, and they feel it. They feel this connection to elephants that is kind of beyond science explanation. But because they already have this deep-rooted spirituality in place between the elephants and the humans, and nature and humans, there's nothing like weird about it. It's just how life is, and it's just included in as if it was the truest thing. And the more I spend time there, the more I seek that truth, and to share it and translate it for others.
Yeah. The mountain revealing itself. What a great metaphor, and what a great example of just how being in nature can reveal so much more than just the natural environment in front of you, right? You mentioned getting the story right, and that seems like an impossible task, because, and we can get this maybe a way into some of the issues here, because it feels like is this the ultimate challenge with conservation? It's like if you err on the side of the animals, in this case, elephants or whatever, then maybe some of the humans that are affected negatively, they're just like, well, no, wait, what about my crops? What about this and that? And if you err too much on the side of the humans, then we're not taking care of the natural environment. How can you get this right?
That is the ultimate question. And it's part of why I was so compelled to tell the story, because early on, I was told, you can't tell the story of the human-elephant conflict in India because it's so complicated. It is too complicated. It's too complex. It's shifting. And so of course that to me was like, I want to tell that story. I want to find a way to tell that story. I'm still finding ways to tell that
challenge.
story.
That
I loved that
you.
challenge.
Yeah, okay.
I wanted to rise to that challenge and see if it was possible. And and you're absolutely right. It is. I think what's so important to me is that it's very easy to tell that story irresponsibly. You could go in there for a week and you could see that, oh my God, the people are chasing the elephants and the elephants are running away, or this is horrible, or the elephants don't have anywhere to go and the people are, it would be the low-hanging fruit to show all the images of, the elephants destroying people in houses. 500 people a year die from elephants in India. About 100 elephants die per year through man-made causes like electrical downlines and getting hit by trains and various things. But it's illegal to kill an elephant in India. So I'm backtracking a little bit, but like in the US, we have wildlife policies where culling is a thing, and killing animals in hunting contests is a thing to manage the predator population. Well, in India, elephants are killing people, coming into their homes, knocking their homes out, eating their crops, destroying the crop fields, and people are not killing the elephants in retribution. They're trying to move them out of the crops with a variety of solutions. And, it would be easy to come in there without understanding the deep, deep spiritual relationship between humans and elephants that have existed for thousands of years, or to see something on the surface, which is these people look like they're chasing elephants, but in fact they are chasing elephants, but there are all these entities that are helping educate people so that they don't chase the elephants and that they give space. And so I was feeling like I really wanted to spend as much time as I could over time in order to responsibly tell the story. I have multiple teachers and guides in India that have dedicated years to helping me understand so that I can kind of translate for a Western audience. And that's been my one small part. I mean, I don't see myself as, I'm coming in here and I'm going to make a difference by telling everybody's story for them. I think my part is that I have the opportunity to, through storytelling, even if I use my own personal journey, to deeply tell this story in a way that hopefully honors a correct translation for those that are living there and heroically trying to make a difference. Like, it is kind of like a Horton Hears a Who, Horton Hears a Who story where people are standing on their social media platforms saying, we're here, we're here, we're here. And there's some language barriers that I just hope to help do my part to change.
Well, as I'm thinking about this, as you're on the ground, trying to visualize the experience, the conversations, of course, you have the ability to converse with all of the people you meet, the organizations, people in villages whose crops or homes are affected, and so on. This is going to sound weird. I suppose you only have the ability to speak with the elephants telepathically in some way.
I love you for asking this. You're amazing. I can't even believe you're asking this.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm just wondering if you,
yeah.
I know it sounds weird, but if you know what they're saying.
Yeah, it's not weird. It is not weird because anyone that's working with elephants, even if they're scientists, they may not be saying like this is happening, but it is happening. There is a very strong sense that the elephants are kind of trying to, not to anthropomorphize them, but there is some ancient communication feeling that, one, they feel like they're trying to at least show the way. I'm so curious about this aspect of it that it's actually the focus. It's the third piece. I've had two experiences. Okay, while we're talking on the cosmic level here, I've had two experiences where the elephant on the cover of my book, I've had an experience with her. Actually, actually had an experience in a breathwork class at a Costa Rican yoga retreat, a deep breathwork class where she actually, this is at the risk of really tripping out all
Let's
your
go
listeners.
there. Let's go there. We're going there, Kim.
Okay, we're going there. I had this experience last year, and the documentary is about to be wrapped. Book is finished. I didn't actually have a third. I had an idea for a third piece that I wanted to do, but I hadn't fully formed yet. And I had this experience in the breathwork class where she invited me. Drishti is what she's been named by the photographer. She invited me into her self. I can't even describe it any other way. I became her. I felt my nose actually becoming a trunk. I actually felt I could see through her eyes, but she's actually blind in one eye. Her communication to me, her message to me was, you have understood, you've worked so hard to understand all the people's stories, and our story is still a mystery to you of what we look like in peace. You've seen us in distress. You've seen us in captive situations, but you don't yet know. I would like to invite you to see us in peace. And she took me into this clearing, and I got to be with, it's going to make me cry. I got to be with her and her little herd, her small herd, and there were these pink flowers surrounding us. And they were peace. Oh my gosh, I felt this amazing feeling of what peaceful coexistence feels like, not just between elephants, but for humans. And I was overcome with this sense of peace. There were bamboo and pink flowers, and I had never in that landscape seen that setting before. And I swear to you, so it was a very powerful experience. And out of it grew this next project that I'm about to leave for next week, which is to deeply gather the oral histories of people who've been living with generations of elephants, living with elephants for generations. I'm interested in getting their anecdotal stories of the elephant behavior, so that I can get deeper to under the skin of the elephants, and metaphorically, because there's so much spirituality, mythology, and truth to the wisdom of the people who have been living with elephants for this period of time. So I'm doing this ancient migration route that I'm following, and collecting these stories. But to back up, 2 weeks after I had that profound experience, the photographer who took that photo on the cover posted on Instagram a picture that he had taken in a clearing where this small herd of elephants were eating bamboo, surrounded by these pink flowers that were the same. I almost passed out. It was the photo. It was the scene I had seen. I just couldn't believe it. I didn't even know the landscape existed that way, and it was a certain bloom of a jarrell flower that elephants love. They don't eat the flower. It's just that the bamboo is, that it's. So you have to suspend your disbelief, I think, in order to be able to really deeply tell these stories. And if you're open to it in life, I think there's a gift there.
That's amazing.
That's what I've learned.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for sharing that. No, I really appreciate that. That's a beautiful story. It seems like we could, as humans, figure out a way to have more access to that connection. I don't know what it is, technology or just our busy lives or whatever. It seems like that ability to connect in either a way you described or some other way, it's always there for us in a way. We've always I think everybody listening has probably experienced that, whether it's through a pet or a bird outside that seems to be like hanging out with you for some reason, or, these things happen. We're all connected. And it just seems that for some reason that can be a tough barrier to unlock.
It's an interesting thing because I'll say this. We are, as humans, we began, indigenous communities still have it. There's nothing woo-woo or weird in indigenous communities that still live with nature, that to be connected to the energy. They see it, they know it, they feel it. Humans have we have that still accessible to us 100%, as you say. But we're now taught, oddly, that there's something weird about like feeling that or seeing that, or it's new agey, or even actually the first review I got, somebody pulled up the quote. They pulled up one of the quotes where I said, I feel this connection that we're all I've had this experience in the field with the elephants, and the next morning I woke up and I say in the book, like, I felt that there's a strong sense that we're interconnected. We are all interconnected. And the reviewer pulled that sentence out of context and said, a new age trope. We're all connected. And I think that's what we're up against, because we're being taught and trained that, that's weird, or, you're like off the spectrum of new age, or you're woo woo or whatever. But yet, so we don't value it anymore. And yet that's where our ability to connect to nature is going to be, and our ability to connect to each other. Like, we've lost our ability to even feel like love for each other as humans. And we need to find that again. If we can see that we're actually connected to each other and to nature, that if we can see it even in the tiniest examples, we might not be so quick. People say like, oh, you must love elephants. And yeah, I love elephants, but I also really love people. And I am looking at the elephants almost as everyone loves elephants. No matter where you go, there are elephants.
Who doesn't love elephants?
Yeah, people love elephants. So in some ways, I've started to think, well, shoot, maybe elephants know something we don't at a big level. Like, maybe they're the vehicle to at least find our commonality. And if we can all rally around that, then maybe we can find some hope for each other.
Yeah. I didn't mean to generalize all humans, but I was thinking more about, sort of Western society, kind of the modern age, the typical sort of treadmill, rat race type environment that we live in. But yeah, to that reviewer, I say, you're breathing in what trees are breathing out, and they're breathing in what you're breathing out. So tell me, buddy, Mr. Reviewer Man with the new age tropes.
Right.
All right. Sorry. I'm off my soapbox.
No. I appreciate that, because also, like, new age, that's old age. I mean,
right. That new age, old age is new age. Yeah.
That's traditional wisdom. It's not new. There's nothing new about that.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, language matters. And it's funny because if you substitute traditional wisdom with new age, that takes on a whole different meaning. And, around that, what about the language around conservation and how it's positioned? I mean, you're trying to cover this topic as a writer, so this is obviously word selection and these types of frameworks and perspectives and how you approach them from a literary standpoint, but also just from the reader's perspective. Like, how can, let's say for the general population, like, in order to institute real change, these things have to be adopted by the masses in some way. There has to be systemic change. I think that's why, an example of this is, instead of calling it global warming, they started calling it climate change, because, people would be like, well, it's not warm here.
Yeah,
You know, it's
exactly.
like, okay, so
There are certain terms. You're 100% right. Like conservation, there are certain trigger terms, right? They've become terms that are polarizing for people, even though they're basic. Conservation is probably one of them. And my interest has always been as a writer, you can preach to a choir. I mean, not just as a writer. My first career was actually in I was a community organizer, and um, I think what's so important if you want to make change, you and boy, are we coming really far from this on social media. We're like these polar little silos, and you can't come if you're in this silo or in that silo. But what I think is so important, if we want to create change, we have to be able to speak a language that is open for all people to hear. You have to, and it's getting harder and harder for people to hear each other. And if we're so set in a certain way, like I believe in these 5 things as my values, and I believe in these 5 things as my values. So I'm not going to hear anything else. And I think as a writer, especially with this book, I see this book as my goal was to reach as many people as possible and take them on the experience that I had in order to help people see something and come to their own conclusions and hopefully want to make a change, regardless of their, tightly held beliefs about whether climate change is real or not real. Like once you're in it, experiencing it, then maybe you come out of it. I mean, I have a funder for the documentary who is a big game hunter, and traditionally, and when he saw my work, he's like, Kim, because of you, I'm never going to shoot another elephant again. If I were a purist in like conservationist, I might be like, I am not, accepting that, or I'm not communicating with somebody who's a big game hunter. But that's not the goal here. The goal here is to crack open all of our eyes to our planet and how our resources are dwindling and how we're not taking care of our planet. And we need to do something. And so everyone needs to do something. Everybody needs to do something in their own way. And everybody can do something in their own way. We don't all have to be aligned in our values to recognize that we're connected to this planet and we have to take care of it. We should all be able to agree on that.
There has to be a fundamental shift in identity that takes place for you to change or to say, that's a very difficult thing, right? If you have your identity tied to a particular mindset or way of thinking about something, and then somebody challenges that, it's not just them challenging if you're disagreeing, oh, what you do, you're a big game hunter, I don't agree with that. Okay, yeah, I see your point. It's not going to happen that way. It's like in that example, I mean, I'm not speaking for that person, but just as an example of identity, if you take on the identity as one of your things, I'm a philanthropist, I'm a business owner, and I'm a big game hunter. It's what I do. It's what I am. You're actually asking somebody, you're not just asking somebody to change their mind about something. You're asking somebody to change their identity, a part of their identity. And that's where it gets difficult to convince people of, well, I don't want to say convince, because you have to find common ground in order to even open up the possibility that somebody that gives somebody all of us the chance to admit, to look at our own beliefs and say, maybe I was wrong about that. Whatever that is, that's hard for all of us. It's
exactly.
Back to the big mountain thing. Maybe the big mountain we couldn't see behind the mist is the thing right. That, we're supposed to change our minds on. Who knows?
And I think that the reality is too, we can put these cloaks of identity on, like, I'm a conservationist, and then, but we have to open up to the idea that lots of people can be conservationists. Even hunters are conservationists. Like you can be
Right.
like what
It works both ways.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's something actually, and it didn't end up making the cut in the film, but it's a sentence that's really important to me, and I've been thinking a lot about it. And that as we move forward, as I continue on telling this story, and I think it's the case in all of our lives in so many situations, you have to be willing to hold two opposing truths in one hand, and then that hand to your heart. Two things can coexist, and they are going to be maybe even opposite truth. But if we can start accepting that those opposing truths are both true, and that's okay, let that be.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, and the example that you used of the conservationist who's not open to that dialogue is also holding on too tightly to their identity and not allowing the opportunity for change, perhaps. Holding two truths, not an easy feat.
No.
Not an easy thing to do.
It's a life lesson, frankly, because it's a personal thing too, right? It's in the people we meet. It's in those we interact with on social media. It's, it's a way, I think it's a path to hopefully break through some of the hate that has characterized and growing hate of other that we've seemed to be clinging to.
Tell me about India. What do you love about it? Why should people visit?
Okay. I've been, so interestingly, the part of India that I continue to go back to, I sadly have not explored most of the country. The part of India that I love with all my heart, that feels like a second home, it's this little corridor in northeast India, North Bengal, and actually it's within sight of Kanchenjunga on a clear day. It's along the Eastern Himalaya, and it's bordered by Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and then the Indian state of Sikkim with Darjeeling is up there and nearby. There are many, and then I'm now going through Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, so I'm very eager to explore those top pieces of that part of the world. What I love most is the way that being there has taught me certain life lessons. So, for example, I've learned that it's good to have a plan, but you can never ever. It's also good to release any clinging or holding or hoping that plan is going to make it through. I like that there's this deep kind of spiritual connection to each other, to the land, but that also there's all this contradiction. Like people say it may be a cliche to say that, in India you have all the human emotion, all the physicality, you see it all. It's all, nothing's hidden. You see everything at once. It's like almost overwhelming. I think people either go to India and fall mad in love with it, or go to India and are like, I'm never going there again. And it's a curiosity to me of, who it captures, who it lodges in your heart. I think the people and that part of the country has deeply lodged itself in my heart. My poor husband is like, when are you going to be done with this? Because it would be nice if we could go some other places. But it's got a hold on me. So be ready. It's not for the faint of heart. It's It's life at its absolute highest volume.
How do you get to that area?
Well, from Sun Valley, it's no small feat. I'm still, after all these times, trying to figure out like the best possible way. This next time I'm finishing the documentary in London. So I leave for London, and then I'll be flying direct from London to Delhi. I go into Delhi but you could go to Kolkata actually, and then I go from there domestically into Bagdogra, which is kind of the hub for anything Darjeeling treks going. It's about 2.5, 3 hours to go up into the mountains from there. I'm not staying as much in the mountain homestays, even though if as a traveler, if you have a chance to do that, it's absolutely stunning. The tea estates blanket the area. They're beautiful, and you can visit them and do tea tours. And much of our tea comes from that part of the world. And Assam, same. The Brahmaputra River, lifeblood of Assam, runs through, which is the Yarling Tsangpo in Tibet. So there's a powerful river that goes through that area. And Dwars, which is this part that I love. There are several national sanctuaries, wildlife sanctuaries that are available for tourists to spend time in, and they have wild elephants, and the government has working elephants that they do patrols. That's a whole other topic, but so there's a lot of wildlife sanctuaries along the elephant migration routes in that area. So for travelers, it's actually, especially Western travelers, I'm typically see very few Western travelers while I'm there.
What do you want to share here? What's one of your primary objectives? And of course, we want to mention the book Elephants in the Hourglass, A Journey of Reckoning and Hope Along the Himalaya. And then you have the documentary as well. You could share that stuff, and we got your website, kimfrankwriter.com. We'll link up to that.
Thank you. kimfrankwriter.com. I'm on Instagram, kimfrankwriter. That's where I do most of my social media. And so follow me there. Definitely please buy the book. And if you buy the book and you loved it, please write a review. Apparently my publisher tells me that's really important. The promotion is, there are some organizations that I'm really fond of that are doing amazing work in the human elephant conflict space. Wildlife Trust of India is a primary one. And then I've been working with boots on the ground with the Jumbo Troops and Spore. And so as I start doing talks around the world more, people are always asking, what can we do? How can we support? And so I'm more and more sharing some of those NGOs that could really use some support too.
Okay. Well, if you want to send us some links, we can put them up in the show notes.
You.
So we can
That'd be amazing.
Directly to the ones that you recommend based on all of your vast experience working in this, working with this human elephant connection. And I want to hear one last maybe call to action or a quote you're living by or anything you want to leave people with. I will share just something you said at the end here, which you said at the beginning of the book. So we're going to end at the beginning for me, which is, you said, I love this quote. You said, quote, "There are many truths, and when we accept this, we are on the path to peaceful coexistence." And I think that is a good kind of bookend to a lot of the things we talked about today, holding those two truths. Yeah, I want to give you the opportunity to just have the floor here and kind of give us a last message here to leave us with.
I think the two things I wanted to end on, and we did kind of touch on this. These are trying times right now in our history, no matter what country we're from. There's a real sense of urgency that we can't keep operating the way we are. And there are people who are, yelling from the rooftops, it's time to make some changes. And I would say dialing that way back just in your daily life. Just be open. Just if we can look at each other a little differently, just be open ourselves a little bit more, see that space between and find some curiosity, pursuing our curiosity. And if we want to fix something, we have to act. Whether that is in our personal lives or at a big scale. And we don't have to change. We're not going to, there's no expectation you're going to change the planet by yourself. But if you do one small step each day, one small thing, or you're even thinking about it and being intentional about it, then I hope, whatever work I'm doing, this is my small part. I'm just doing my small part. But if my small part hopefully inspires somebody somewhere to do their small part times 100, times 1,000, times 50,000, then maybe we can tip the balance. And that's my hope. Peaceful coexistence is my hope.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Jason. This was really special.
There you have it. Thank you to Kim Frank, of course. We will link up to everything in the show notes so you can find more about her work. I'm going to leave you with a quote in a minute from her website, actually, that I thought was really inspiring and I think will work nicely to wrap this one up. One thing I wanted to comment on, two things actually. First, my big takeaway, that idea of both things can be true, holding two truths. I remember reading something along these lines in a parenting book. It was one of the techniques. You can say, well, both things are true, right? And if my son's sad about going to school, well, both things can be true. He can be sad about going to school, but also he has to go to school. And it's not, saying it's one or the other. And that's kind of freeing in many ways when I'm parenting, because it's just like, well, you can have your emotions, of course, and you can want to or not want to do something, but also still have to do it. And both of those things can be true. And more than one thing can be true at once. And we know that this is not life isn't in black or white all the time. It's shades of gray. And I think that is worth remembering just on a personal level, because sometimes it's confusing in our own heads, at least for me, when I'm trying to figure some things out and I'm like, well, I want to do this, but I don't know if I want to do it and this and that and the other. And it's like, well, hey, maybe both things are true. Maybe acknowledging that both things can be true is a way through. Okay, I wasn't trying to create like a hip hop line there, but you get my drift. It can be helpful. So I just wanted to share that. And something I mentioned at the top, I just love Kim's story, and that, when I talk to people that end up doing something like this, documenting a cause, trying to get into conservation or something that they have no experience with, which is all of us, right? We're not born with this experience. You have to empower yourself to insert yourself into the conversation, into the industry, into the cause, insert whatever thing you want to go after. You have to just go for it. Or, not have the confidence that, oh, I'm definitely going to pull this off, although that can be helpful at times. But sometimes we're just going for it, even if we're not even sure if we can pull it off. I mean, I think that's most of us. And sometimes being unsure if we can pull it off can stop us in our tracks. And we can't let it, because maybe we can pull it off. Or if we don't pull it off, we're sure going to learn a lot. We're going to meet a lot of cool people. We may even just have a blast on that journey of not pulling it off. So who knows? Thought those were a few things worth mentioning. And one other thing I mentioned at the top, we all contribute in some ways to our local community. We talked about Kim's work today, and I think when we hear a conversation like this, or somebody tackling an issue and, traveling across the world to do all that, and it just seems so big. And the reality is we all contribute. So let's not judge the size of our contributions. It all matters. But nothing happens without mustering up the courage to act. And that means connecting with other humans. It means putting yourself out there, perhaps, maybe doing things a little differently. And again, let's not judge the size of our contributions. Let's just have the courage to act and perhaps contribute in meaningful ways where we can. And I think that collectively, that makes a big difference in the world, right? So anyway, It's my rant for the day. I'm sticking to it. I will leave you with this quote from Kim's website from Charles Bukowski, who said, "If something burns your soul with purpose and desire, it's your duty to be reduced to ashes by it. Any other form of existence will be yet another dull book in the library of life." Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by zerototravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.